Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on 88.1 WBFH The Biff. Today, as always, it is an OU Friday on the Oakland County Megacast. We are pleased to be joined by Oakland University as our Facebook partner today. We'll speak with their Director of Athletics, Steve Waterfield, in just a few minutes as we continue to bring you the latest news and information from around Oakland County, the state of Michigan, and more on the coronavirus and other top news stories. Now today, we will be going to Governor Whitmer live at 11 o'clock. She will address the state in her second press conference of the month of August after a big day of coronavirus cases that we will talk about in just a few moments here. As always, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, we are live here on the Oakland County Megacast on our family of community TV, radio, and other media outlets. And then we're in the afternoons for replays, as well as on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast. On civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we have information about the COVID-19 pandemic straight from the sources, the CDC, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities, as well as our top stories each and every day here on the Megacast. And today's top story, the governor and the GOP are close to a deal on a plan to reopen our schools. Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Republican-led legislature are negotiating a plan that would allow Michigan school districts to choose to offer in-person, remote, or hybrid instruction this fall. Whitmer and GOP leaders are still ironing out details that could be announced as soon as today, but multiple sources familiar with the talks tell Bridge Michigan magazine that the package is expected to eliminate a House-approved requirement that districts at least offer in-person classes from K to 5 students. With restart dates fast approaching, Whitmer and the GOP leaders are working to finalize the legislation ahead of a rare Saturday session scheduled in the state Senate. If approved there, the House would then vote on the plan in a rare Monday session as well. So that may be something that the governor is going to address today. I would presume that is going to be part of her press conference today, talking about those school plans, as her and leaders across the aisle are very close, as this reports, on a deal that would provide schools with this guidance to reopen either in person, hybrid, or entirely virtual.
Yeah, her staff wouldn't confirm whether or not she is actually going to talk about this. She is scheduled to have the press conference. It's going to be her, the lieutenant governor, as well as the chief medical officers. So we do expect they're going to talk about COVID, but with the clock ticking, Tyler, they have got to come up with some type of deal. A lot of this has to center around funding for the schools, because as we know, funding is based on attendance. How do you take attendance when kids are virtual? And even if a child has to be out quarantined for 2 weeks because of COVID, or if they came in contact, how are you going to count them? Funding is a huge, huge part of this, and school districts want guidance and answers.
They've been looking for guidance and answers for a long time. Hopefully within the day today, or within the next few days after this decision is made by the governor, made by Republicans in the legislature, in the House and the Senate, and Democrats in the House and the Senate as well, that they will have that guidance that they've been seeking for so long as they approach the beginning of the school year. Other top stories at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. An audit slams oversight of remote learning. As hundreds of thousands of Michigan school children gear up for all virtual classes in the fall amid the coronavirus pandemic, an audit found that the state can't guarantee their effectiveness. The report from the Michigan Office of the Inspector General sharply criticized the state's handling of existing online courses, saying education officials don't have enough information on student performance and attendance of virtual classes. Without changes, auditors said there is a potential negative impact that the absence of a well-developed evaluation strategy could have on advancing the achievement of virtual learners in traditional public schools. So another concern as you're coming back to school, is the effectiveness of online learning, and how do you track not only the attendance of these students, but how are they progressing in their learning? If they're not moving forward, then virtual learning is clearly not being effective for them, and there has to be other solutions in place.
And we should note, online learning is not new due to this pandemic. There have been organizations that have offered this as an option for students for years now, but it's never been so widely used as it is now. So to have something like this come out as we're going back to school in the fall, it's one other issue that needs to be addressed.
More stories at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. The FDA denies Henry Ford's request to use hydroxychloroquine. Weeks after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration revoked emergency use authorization of hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19, saying the drug doesn't help coronavirus patients and has potentially dangerous side effects, Henry Ford Health System filed for permission to continue using it. The request came after Henry Ford published a study in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases that suggested that hydroxychloroquine slashed the COVID-19 death rate in half. The peer-reviewed observational study contradicted other published reports that showed the drug doesn't help coronavirus patients and could cause heart rhythm problems in some people. The FDA denied Henry Ford's request this week to use hydroxychloroquine. So that debate continues on, as Henry Ford had gone out and said that hydroxychloroquine was somewhat effective in preventing major complications from COVID-19, but other publications saying, no, that's not the case. The jury's still out on hydroxychloroquine. We shouldn't be using this drug until we know exactly what it does for COVID-19 and what side effects, potentially positive or negative, it could have on patients that are using hydroxychloroquine. Henry Ford wanting to continue to use it, continue to see the progress of it, and the FDA saying no go.
Henry Ford officials did come out after they got the backlash publicly from their study, and they defended the study and said politics should not be in science. But they also said they weren't going to put any more public statements out regarding this, and now we have this come out. So it looks like that study and the use is going away.
More stories on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. The big news today: more than 1,100 new coronavirus cases reported on Thursday. Michigan recorded 16 deaths and 1,121 cases from the novel coronavirus on Thursday, the single highest day total since May. The Thursday deaths included 9 that were identified later during a records review, according to the state. The state's overall case tally now reaches 90,332 people, and the death count is at 6,289, according to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The pandemic had its largest recorded case spike on May 12th, when the state recorded 1,600 new cases, so quickly approaching that number yesterday. It only goes up to a little bit over 1,100 cases, but that's almost a double of what we have seen on many days in the past couple of weeks. A big concern, maybe one of those reasons why Governor Whitmer on Thursday suddenly called a press conference for this morning at 11 o'clock that we will have live for you here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Yeah, let's hope that they do offer some clarification as to the reason behind the spike in these numbers. Also, we are seeing where there are times that they've had to come back and adjust the numbers, either bring them up or raise them down, just because of lag in that testing coming from the labs. So hopefully she's going to offer some clarification as to why they believe there has been a spike in the number of cases.
In many situations, we've had several hundred cases more than we had been seeing on normal days over the course of any given week, and that had been then clarified within that report as being, well, it was 500 some odd cases yesterday plus another 350 400 some odd cases that were backlogged, and that's how you got to 900 800 whatever the case may be. In this case, no indication of that. This may very well be 1,121 new coronavirus cases, which of course is a cause for concern and one of the many reasons, I would presume, why Governor Whitmer plans to address the state today in a press conference. Lastly, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, the state is going to send postcards to registered voters. Michigan is sending postcards to more than 4 million registered voters, encouraging them to apply to vote absentee in the November election. The state also plans to spend millions of dollars in order to reimburse local cities that offer prepaid return envelopes for absentee ballots. The moves are the latest by Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to advocate for casting a ballot before Election Day, an initiative aimed at increasing voter participation while preventing the spread of coronavirus. More than 1.6 million voters used absentee ballots for the August primary, more than any other election in state history. And Ronnie, with the continued issue of the U.S. Postal Service being defunded and in many cases having more delays come into play and more encouragement being sent out to not use the Postal Service for returning absentee ballots after about 2 weeks out from the general election, states like Michigan making more effort to provide opportunities for people to vote by mail and encouraging people to vote by mail, which they are legally allowed to do after the decision that was voted in by the public.
One of the issues that came up during the primary was people were maybe only putting one stamp on the envelope, and it actually takes 2 stamps. So it was getting sent back. So Oakland County was the first in the state to offer up paying for the envelopes for the November election. So now it looks like the state is going to reimburse the counties and the cities for that service.
All those stories and more on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, you can find information directly from reputable sources at the federal level, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state of Michigan, and the Oakland County website, as well as many of our local municipalities. Those are their direct COVID-19 pages, so you don't have to go to their website and dig through a bunch of other pages to get to their COVID-19 information. Whatever COVID-19 information you need, you can get directly from civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, your top stories each and every day on the Oakland County Megacast as we continue to talk about the changes being made and the impact being made by COVID-19 on our society, including our schools and including our school athletics. And that includes the purview of our first guest today, the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, Steve Waterfield, joins us now on the Oakland County Megacast. Steve, thank you for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being on. How are you, and how is your team at the Oakland University Athletics Department?
We're doing well. We're blessed to be healthy. We are planning for our student athletes to come back with the rest of our students at the end of August, and it's going to look different, but we're excited to bring them back and to see them either virtually or socially distanced when they do come back.
So at Oakland University, it's going to be different for each college, for each university, for each high school and middle school and so on down the line. What are fall sports going to look like at Oakland University in terms of practicing, in terms of games, in terms of participation?
Sure. So late yesterday afternoon, the Horizon League Board of Directors, which is the presidents and chancellors of each of the Horizon League's schools, voted to postpone fall sports competition and revisit whether we can move those competitions to the spring. And so for men's and women's soccer, volleyball, men's and women's cross country here at Oakland, who typically play in the fall, those will be postponed, and we'll continue to assess if we can provide a safe and meaningful competition opportunity in the spring, which we hope. And then for some of the sports that it's basically during their non-championship season, so roughly baseball, tennis, golf, softball, those sports won't compete in the fall either. They typically have 1 or 2 competitions they're allowed to be in. They will again look to start in the spring, and then we'll decide what we do with our winter sports, basketball, indoor track and field, and swimming and diving. But even when they do come back, the hope and expectation is once they're medically cleared, they will be engaged in practice activities that will be conducted socially distant, masked, with fewer people inside once we get access to our weight room. So it will look different, no shared equipment, a lot of things as we've told them on these video calls. It's going to be the same sport that you've probably played for decades, but it's just going to look different this year. And the reason why, it's for your own safety, well-being, not just you, but also of our coaches, staff, and the campus community.
We've seen the bubble experiment working with the NBA. Is that something that could be considered for college athletes?
Yeah, I think it's tough because really at the end of the day, our student athletes are students first and foremost. And so they're going to engage like the rest of our student body. And you can't really put a bubble around our student population, and where you have professional sports and professional student athletes that those are things that they've agreed to do. With our students, they come and go on campus and they're free to do that. Maybe, and I've heard just last night and this morning, the NCAA basketball tournament could look to have type of a bubble setup come spring. And there's some logistics there, but a widespread long-term bubble really isn't what I'd want to see, because it really takes away from the campus and the student experience overall.
Steve Waterfield with us. He is the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, our Facebook partner today on this OU Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. And Steve, this is obviously having a great effect on the players. What are the players and student athletes at Oakland University saying? What are their thoughts, or what are the conversations has your department had with players regarding the decisions for fall?
Yeah, so our coaches from March, when this really started, they've had regular meetings, Zoom meetings and virtual meetings with the teams. We've checked in on occasion as well. We've met with every team, and we'll be meeting with every team over the course of the next few weeks to kind of give them the protocol that we'll have in the athletics department, what campus expects of them, wearing masks, sanitation, good hygiene. And so we're probably 6 or 7 sports in. We had our men's soccer team have that call yesterday. And so we've talked through that, what the screening will look. What I've heard from student athletes and what I've heard through coaches from student athletes is they want to play. And I really am just, it's sad and difficult to postpone a season because I know how much they care about competing and doing what they love to do. But the best decision was to postpone it. But they want to get on the field. And they want to do it in a safe manner, but they love their sports. And we're just trying to find ways that we can do that this fall and then heading into next semester.
For those that maybe are not familiar with the systems at play and how things work on a college athletics level, these players are oftentimes on scholarship to play these sports. And now that they're not going to be playing these sports in the fall, are any of their scholarships at risk? And is that a potential problem with these athletes, many of them going to school because of these scholarships and because they have those opportunities?
Yeah, so all their scholarships will be honored, whether they want to participate or not this year. If they decide to opt out for health and safety reasons, I respect those decisions, and they'll get the same scholarship amount that they would typically have received if it was what you'd call a typical year. So a lot of them receive partial scholarships, which would be a fraction of tuition, a fraction of room and board perhaps, or books. Most of our student athletes receive less than even full tuition. Many receive no scholarship at all. But if their athletic scholarships will not be impacted by any decisions they make to participate or not participate, and they can certainly change their mind as well. If they decide to participate and then something happens and they wish to opt out and kind of take this season off, it won't be impacted. The NCAA is working through the eligibility piece to it. If we use this past spring as any kind of preview of what may happen, all of the spring sports student athletes, when their years were canceled, did not use that year of eligibility. So we have about 7 or 8 seniors that are actually coming back to finish their last year of eligibility. And then those that were freshmen, sophomores, juniors got that year back so that they didn't lose that as one of their 4 years of eligibility. And I would hope that would still be the case for our fall sports student athletes that would, if they have a chance to compete.
We've heard a lot about team sports. What about club sports? Will those students still be able to play?
Yeah, so the club sport piece, most of the club sports have kind of governing bodies as well, and they've paused or kind of are taking a wait and see approach. For those club sports that go up through Greg Jordan and the Recreation and Wellbeing Office, the safety piece is critical, what it would look like, as well as realizing, and it's one of the things that it becomes very apparent, it's difficult to have competitions. And so how can those club sports be done safely from a practice standpoint will be things that Greg and his staff and we work with together. And then even if there are competitions available nationally with those governing bodies, does it really make sense from a safety standpoint to compete this semester? And we'll work through those conversations this semester and next semester.
Steve Waterfield with us. He's the Director of Athletics at Oakland University with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Steve, while many of these in-person sports are being canceled or postponed for the fall, something that is relatively new to the college athletics and sports realm is esports, and Oakland University does have a new esports team. Will that team continue their competition this fall?
Yeah, so I didn't know when we announced that being the first Division I varsity esports program in the state of Michigan this past December that esports probably is the most practical and safe sport to play in a pandemic and given the distancing requirements. Our expectation is to play this fall because the competitors can be in separate rooms, in separate parts of the world, in separate parts of the country, and do things in a safe manner. So as we look to have those competitions in our 3 games, League of Legends, Rocket League, and Smash Brothers, we will do that consistent with the safety protocols that we have to abide by, but there is ways to do that which are a lot easier than some of the other sports that we have. So it's exciting to see and looking forward to get that off the ground fall semester.
Okay, I'm going to back you up a little bit here because I will say I saw a segment about esports on Real Sports on HBO, and I was like, what are they talking about? How is this an actual sport? So for the people who aren't familiar with esports, talk a little bit about what it is and why it does qualify as a sport.
Yeah, so it's competitive gaming, and I tell people, and I date myself when I say this, is for me competitive gaming was Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Pole Position, Atari 800s and things like that. Well, it's obviously a lot different now, and so it's over $1 billion industry with 580, 600 million kind of participants, but it's competitive video game playing with either individuals or teams. And Fortnite's an example, but also League of Legends, Super Smash, Rocket League, things like that. So university.
Just got you. I missed everything you said until just now.
Steve, just a moment. We have, it seems like there's somebody else that has just popped into our Zoom meeting, and we had a little bit of interruption on your audio there. We'll have you just continue now in just a moment.
All right.
Like we're good to go. So go ahead and
keep going. All right. And so when you say, well, it's not a sport. Well, in reality, the reflexes, the stamina that come with playing, and the mental alertness that you need to have for 2 to 3 hours of competitive high-end game playing, the teamwork, because a lot of this is you're working as a team to accomplish your goal and to win. There's a lot of similarities with what we do with other sports, and one of the great parts that really was important to me was that our head coach Carl Leone believes strongly that these esports student athletes are going to engage in the same strength and conditioning, nutrition, wellness, academics, community service that all of our student athletes engage in. And it's important to him because he knows that the better we are in those areas, the better we'll be competitively. And he's had a great level of interest. But no, you watch it and you're like, is this really a sport? And then the more you dive into it, absolutely. And it's just going to continue to grow, which is going to be exciting to have Oakland be at the forefront of that growth.
Steve Waterfield with us. He's the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, with us on the Oakland County Megacast, and that's just another example of Oakland University continuing to build its athletics program. It's becoming more prominent over the years. You've had plenty of athletes that have come out of Oakland University and gone on to have careers in professional sports. Kendrick Nunn's a great example with the Miami Heat in the NBA. Think about some other players that have come out of Oakland University into the NBA, like Raul Marshall in the past. Steve Clarkson in the MLS. He plays for the Portland Timbers. You have Mike Brousseau of the Tampa Bay Rays. There's so many athletes that are coming out of Oakland University now in recent years than we've ever seen before. How great has the growth been of Oakland University's athletics program just in recent years?
No, it's been on a wonderful trajectory, and it continues to be on a really steep trajectory. And our goal is to work with the athletic department community, the campus community, to really continue that. But just this past week, Steve Clark, the Portland Timbers, the starting goalkeeper, wins to return to MLS Cup, and the Portland Timbers will be in the CONCACAF Cup. So you have Mike, I think the same night, Mike Brasso hit a home run. And so a wonderful representative of our Oakland University baseball program. Brian Stewart, a professional golfer, is playing on the PGA Tour regularly and doing well. Jake Neen, who was a former golfer here, qualified for his first pro event, the 3M tournament up in Minneapolis. Kendrick Nunn, Raul Marshall, and so many others that have had success. And so the first part is you're just so happy for them because they are doing what I'm sure they dreamed about doing when they were youngsters, and the fact that Oakland could play a part in that is special, and we're very proud to consider them as we do all of our student athletes, part of the Golden Grizzlies athletics family, and to follow them. And there'll be more. We have amazing student athletes, great coaches, and I expect more and more that want to pursue professional athletics are going to have those opportunities in the coming years.
So having players reach such a high platform with national recognition, how does that help the school in your recruiting of some of these athletes?
It's a huge benefit. You see it a lot of times at the basketball, football, and other levels, but also at the Olympic sport level. Those that they want to go to programs where they can eventually play professionally, and to see that proof of concept that yes, you come here and you will have the opportunity to play professionally. You will receive great coaching and great resources to put yourself in that position. It will help with recruiting. It will help us attract talented, not just athletically, but academically, students to Oakland to be part of our student athlete program here. So it's a big boom, and it's great to see. And the more we have, which I know we'll have more, the better it will be for our coaches during that recruiting process.
Steve Waterfield with us, the Director of Athletics at Oakland University. Steve, just a couple more minutes with you on the program today.
Sure.
Is there any other information you'd like to provide listeners, those who maybe are interested in Oakland University or coming to Oakland University, are interested in Oakland University's sports, about what your athletics department and what your teams are doing to prepare for sports this year with COVID-19 in mind, or what the future may hold?
Yeah, I think the big thing is what we've tried to focus on, knowing that we may not have as many games to talk about, is really pushing out content and stories. So I encourage all of our fans and those that are interested in Oakland University athletics to go to our athletics website, goldengrizzlies.com, and our social media sites to really see some neat stories about alumni as well as current student athletes and what we're doing here at Oakland. As the season progresses, we may not be able to have fans at our competitions when those do occur, but we will look for ways to connect with our fans and to make sure they have that information. And I tell our staff all the time, we'll be better for this as we go through these challenging times. And then we look as things hopefully pivot back to more normalcy in the future to have our fans back. But it's just a very exciting time to be part of Oakland University athletics. I am blessed to work with a wonderful group of coaches and staff, and we are blessed to have student athletes that are really at the core of what we do here. And though this year will look different, and there's no way around that, the core of what we believe in and our four core values, excellence, integrity, optimism, and perseverance, will remain, and we'll continue to build out and look forward to the bright future ahead.
Well, Steve, we thank you very much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you. Take care and be well.
You as well. Steve Waterfield, the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, with us on the Oakland County Megacast as Oakland prepares for sports this year with COVID-19 at mind. Just another one of those colleges and universities in our state, and in a league like the Horizon League, that's another one of those NCAA leagues that has decided to forego fall sports, potentially move them to spring out of an abundance of caution due to COVID-19.
You know, I just think no one anticipated that we were going to be here at this time of the year. Back when this first started in March, you were thinking, okay, a couple weeks. Okay, then it was a couple months. Now we're 5 months into this. So while we're saying, hey, we could maybe push it to the spring, there's a good chance that we're not going to have sports at all at some of these colleges for the rest of this year, this entire year. These athletes that put so much time and energy into crafting their sport to get better, they are really missing out on so much during this time. But we're all learning new things as well. So they're very lucky to have good coaches and good mentors around them during this time. But I will say one of the most interesting things to me coming out of Oakland University right now has to do with esports. That is going to continue, and it makes you wonder, is it going to grow in popularity because there are other sports that aren't happening?
And it's interesting too because of esports is growing at such a great rate around the country, and you have leagues, even in professional leagues, whose corresponding video games, like the National Basketball Association and NBA 2K has a virtual league, a 2K league. You may see other sports be more tailored toward esports now in the fall. Maybe there's a Madden football or a an old college football video game tournament instead of these regular seasons. And some of those college athletes that play these sports video games in their free time, maybe they become esports athletes for a year. So universities like Oakland that are putting that much focus on esports, it's going to be a big part in the sports landscape in the remainder of 2020 and maybe through a significant portion of 2021, as a lot of our schools are canceling sports for the fall due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll speak with another local business owner. We'll speak with Pamela Walther, the owner of Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market. That's coming up and more. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this quick break with more of the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, we're on 88.1 WBFH, the Biff and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Today, we're on Facebook via Facebook Live with Oakland University, and thank their entire team over there for joining us on this OU Friday as we continue to talk to a number of local businesses and people about how they've been impacted by COVID-19. Businesses and people such as business owner Pamela Walther of the Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market with us now on the Oakland County Megacast over the phone. Pam, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. How are you, and how are things going at Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market?
Oh, well, we are always staying busy at Bizzy Buzz. We got our online website up and running, and the doors are back open again as well. So always a lot to do, no matter what happens in this crazy pandemic.
So for those who are unfamiliar, what can people expect at Busy Buzz Artisan Market? What do you sell? What services do you provide?
So we are a local artist market. So we actually have over 70 local artists, all with their product in our store. And all the artists come from within about an hour of downtown Rochester, so very, very local people. So it makes us different, because when you see something in our store, let's say it's not quite the right color or size, or you'd like it personalized with someone's name on it or whatever it might be. A lot of times our artists can make another one just the way you like it. So we do that. We normally, when we're not in the middle of a shutdown, we actually do workshops and classes. We have a whole artist demonstration bar that we use for that. So yeah, it's all local artist products, everything from woodworking and stained glass to jewelry and Detroit-centric novelties like the T-shirts and the glassware. Just a lot of fun, unique things that you're not going to see anywhere else.
So, Pam, I know that you took a leap of faith to open this business in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
You go through the pandemic. How are you recovering? And are you still glad that you took that leap of faith?
Yeah, when we set this up, I did get a degree in business, and right from the beginning I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to be able to compete. All these big box stores and everything. And so when we set up the business, the plan was always to go online. And it took, we were open about a year, and I started working on the online presence, and it took about 7 months to get that fully up and underway. And it was actually only a week after the shutdown that we were ready to go live with it. So the timing was impeccable. So that's really helped us to stay ahead of the game, because we already had that, going and set up for us. So when I have new artists coming in, their question is always now, what happens if you shut down, if we have another shutdown? And I can say, we will always have a way to sell your product, because even if the shutdown happens, we can ship product, we can sell it on our website and ship it, or if, the curbside pickup is allowed, because we're in a downtown area, we have a front door and we have a back door, and we've been using our back door for the curbside pickups. So people can just pull right up and we bring it out to them, and it's easy. We're still in business. So I think that really helps set us apart.
So will you continue the curbside pickup, and are people still utilizing it, or do they still just want to come in and browse what is on the shelves?
We definitely saw a difference in how people were shopping when we were allowed to open the doors of the store back up. It switched from people buying online to now coming into the store again. Although we still have website sales, it's just not as much, now that the store is back open. And we have people coming in that say that they saw something on the website and then they wanted to come into the store to check it out. So.
Pamela Walther with us. She is the owner of Busy Buzz Artisan Market with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Pamela, you said that you have over 70 artists who are contributing to what is being sold in your stores. How has their work been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic? Is it still coming in at a similar rate? Has their work maybe slowed down, or is there any issues with getting more work in to your stores, or has that remained consistent?
They have, it depends on each artist. Some artists have to get supplies that, come from elsewhere, and so they're limited to what they can do if they can't get the proper supplies. However, most of them, they get creative. They find ways around things. We have an artist that makes face masks, and, she didn't start off making face masks, but she can sew and knit and crochet, and she can do it all. So when the need arose, then she started making the face mask. Well, the problem was you couldn't get elastic. And also material was very limited. It was limited to what type of material you could get and how much you could get. But she got creative and, found an alternative to the elastic that she could use for the ear parts. And, that's just the neat thing about, working with local artists is they can turn it on a dime and start making new products. And, we have an artist that does tumblers, drink tumblers. And, she really did something funny. After the president made the comment about injecting, what was it, Lysol or something, if that might actually help everybody beat the COVID-19. She started making tumblers that had, one of them had a Clorox, looked like a Clorox bottle, and then the other one looked like a Lysol bottle. So they do fun things like that and change it up all the time.
Pamela Walther with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the owner of Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market. And Pamela, over the course of the pandemic, those kinds of novelty products, of course, are going to attract people and people are going to want to buy those products because they're interesting, they're topical, and they at some point will be historical pieces. Other than those kinds of novelties, what do you usually see are being those products that are the most coveted by your customer base?
Oh gosh. Everybody comes into the store and they say, oh, wow. If it's the first time in the store, they say, oh, wow, because the building has all been remodeled. So you see the tin tile ceiling and the brick and it's just gorgeous. And then they start looking at the product and they are just immediately, oh, look at this. And then whoever came in the store is on the other side of the store saying, no, come here, look at this. You have to see this. And they're pulling each other across the store to see all the cool, unique products. So there's so much. There's something for everybody. I can't even pick one product to say this is our biggest seller because it just depends on, what holidays are around the corner. A lot of people come in there buying gifts, or even the realtors love coming in to buy closing gifts. And people have said this is my number one stop. To whenever I have a gift, I need a gift for somebody because I always find something there. I even say we have gift cards. However, we don't sell too many of them because usually when people come in, they find something that works for them or for the person that they're buying for. So it's just a handful. I could say a handful of gift cards that we've actually needed to sell.
You had mentioned briefly about the supply chain and some of the artists having issues getting supplies. Is that changing now? And are they able to get what they need? And are you seeing more items come in through this pandemic?
I don't know if it's changing yet. I haven't heard the artists say, oh, yeah, now I'm good. Like I'm all caught up. They've had more time to work on their products, and so they have been able to make more products. They were ready to go when, we have this Thursday night markets in downtown Rochester right now, and Bizzy Buzz has a couple of spaces. So we have about 3 or 4 of our artists every Thursday night doing these open air downtown Thursday night markets. And the artists had, a lot of them had built up product during the shutdown and were ready to, fill a whole tent with product as well as keep the store stocked. So now there were some artists that told me, yeah, I had all this time, but I just wasn't, I wasn't motivated. I think we all felt that, when the shutdown happened, you're just kind of got in a lull of trying to figure out what the new norm was, and it was hard to get yourself motivated to do anything. So I've had artists tell me, from both ends, both sides of the story.
So there is such a creativity that goes into it. It's if you're not motivated, sometimes the work stops. But one thing we have in Metro Detroit is so many incredibly talented artists. How do you pick and choose the artists that you're going to represent in your store? Before the store opened, this was a startup, so we didn't have another location. When we opened 2 years ago now, it was brand new business. And so my family, my mom, my husband, my son, we would walk the different art fairs and festivals and just talk, if we saw an artist that had product that we thought would be good, that we really liked, we would go up to them and talk to them, introduce ourselves, tell them about the store. And, at that time, the store was, we had ripped out the floor completely. It was a dirt floor. We peeled all the layers off the walls, all the paneling, and actually we found sheets of tin tile behind the paneling, which was awesome. And behind the tin tile there was brick.
so we were able to repurpose the tile. But anyway, I had to interview an artist across the street over at the coffee shop, and then walk him over to the store to show him, this store that didn't look like very much. They had to take a leap of faith on us too, and know that we were going to actually finish the store and set it up appropriately to be a good space and be able to move in. And but it all worked out. But yeah, finding the artist was a lot. Going to the art shows, which now have not been happening. That obviously limits me to finding new artists without having all the shows going on. Thankfully, we're in our second year, and a lot of people know about us now, and we've built up a good mailing list of people so we can send emails out and let them know, hey, now's the time to apply if you haven't already. And just now, I would say in the last month, we finally got a lot more artists applying. We hadn't, you get busy. Obviously, everyone wants to get in before the holidays, but come January, February, March, it's cold outside. People don't like walking downtown as much, and so that's usually our slow time, and that's usually when we'll have openings. And so it wasn't until, I would say, the last month that we actually had a lot of people start applying again, which I'm excited to have, the store fully full again.
Pamela Walther with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the owner of the Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market with us on the show today. And Pamela, going back to COVID-19, art is something that a lot of people want to investigate. They're often interactive with the art pieces, and that creates a lot of extra touch points within your store. And on that note, I just want to ask about what your team is doing to ensure a clean environment and a COVID-safe environment in your store, as is required by every business in the county.
Yeah. So we are cleaning and sanitizing frequently used touch points. All of our staff are wearing masks. We have required, since we first were allowed to open our doors, for everyone to wear a mask. We knew that there'd be people walking in that just could wear a mask but would choose not to if we didn't enforce it. So right from the get-go, we said, no, you have to wear a mask. And I used to work with people with disabilities, and they were the first on my mind when I had to make this executive policy for the store. And and I know, because we have the website, and because we would be able to use things like FaceTime to help people shop if they weren't able to tolerate a mask, I said, no, I think we have to do this, or else nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to wear a mask. So we've done it from the beginning, and we haven't had a big issue with it. We just tell people when they come in that face masks are required, and if they don't have one, we have some available, so like disposable ones that they can use so that they can come in and shop. We've probably lost maybe one sale because of it, because I had to turn someone away because they weren't wearing a mask. So to me, that's not a high price to pay to make sure that we're all kept safe. If there's anyone coughing or sneezing or anything like that, then we would ask them to step outside and help them from get what they need and bring it out to them. But we're just constantly cleaning. We don't have anyone. We close the bathroom to the public. We usually have arcade games in the back. We have a pinball machine. We have a Pac-Man machine. We have a radio listening station inside of an old vault that came with the store. So I don't know how old it is. At least 100 years old. It's about 4,000 pounds. We turned it into a record listening station. So we have all that stuff closed up right now, so that we don't have people touching a lot of things. Obviously, we've had little ones in the store, and when they come in the store and mom's just trying to shop, I might turn on one of the games so the little one can play the game, and then we go wipe it down afterwards. So by request, if you really want to play some pinball, you just let us know.
Pamela Walther with us. She is the owner of Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Pamela, just another few minutes with you before we let you go. Is there anything else that you'd like people to know about your market, or where people can find more information on what you guys do over there?
Yeah, sure. They can always find more information on our website. It's www.bizzybuzzart.com. You got to spell busy right, though. It's Bizzy. So bizzybuzzart.com. So yeah, go on our website, check us out. You'll see all the cool stuff, and you know, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you can stay most up to date as to all the new things happening, any outdoor markets that are happening, or when special events can start up and workshops and shows can start up again. You know, we post them on there, and then we also have a newsletter sign up. So if you prefer to take emails, then we do that as well. So check us out.
So Pam, real quick before we let you go, do you have a date that you're shooting for to be able to start offering those workshops again at all?
Well, we have been told for at least for special events in downtown, like the sidewalk sales or the Chris Kringle Market, those are annual events downtown, we have to be in phase 5 for those to happen. So until that happens, I haven't even considered doing kind of workshops or classes unless the artist wants to start offering virtual classes, which we do have a couple artists that are considering offering that. So we'll just have to see if we can start coordinating, virtual classes that way. So that is a possibility, but we don't have an exact date set for that yet.
Well, Pamela, we thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
You as well. Pam Walther with us on the Oakland County Megacast over the phone. We appreciate having her on as we continue to talk to a number of local businesses that have been creative throughout this process and have persevered throughout this process. Her business, Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market, definitely a story of perseverance and creativity there, and helping these local artists also continue to sell their works, which has been a little bit more difficult for some of them during this pandemic.
So if you're looking for a gift for someone, make sure you either stop in or go to their website because they have so many unique things. So if you have someone that's on that shopping list, people still have birthdays, people still have, anniversaries, things of that nature. They are very unique. So it's not things that you're going to find in your big box stores. They're very unique. And a lot of the artists can also do custom work for you, which is great. Because sometimes I have to tell you, Tyler, I get so stressed buying gifts for certain people. So a store like this is really a great alternative to take the stress out of your shopping, but you're also supporting local people from Metro Detroit and their creativity and the local business that is taking and highlighting them in one location, which I always like downtown Rochester too. Just shopping, eating, getting a coffee. It's a great place to visit.
It is, and there are great businesses like Pam's that make it such a wonderful place to visit, shop, and spend the day there in Rochester. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get all set and ready to go with Governor Whitmer's press conference. That will begin at 11 o'clock. We'll go live to that as soon as she begins. We'll kind of give a little bit of a preview of that and go over some of our top news stories. When we come back, you're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this break.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dolan, studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, we're on 88.1 WBFH at Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Today, we're also on the Facebook page via Facebook Live with Oakland University. It is an OU Friday here on the Oakland County Megacast. We appreciate having Steve Waterfield, the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, on with us this morning as we are preparing for the governor to speak today at her second press conference of the month of April. That will begin in just a few minutes. We are standing by live for that as we speak. The governor will speak at 11 o'clock today via Facebook Live. We will carry that entire press conference for you live here on the Oakland County Megacast. As you can see, if you're watching us on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Civic Center TV, or online on Facebook and on our website at civiccentertv.com. We are standing by waiting for the governor to take the podium in Lansing. Once we have the governor going to the podium, we will go straight to that. And Ronnie, it's expected today that the governor will address in particular the recent spike we've had in COVID-19 cases, a couple of higher case number days over the course of this week, including Thursday's numbers, which were a staggering 1,121 cases, which is the largest single day case number since May. That a huge point of concern that probably did trigger this press conference, as well as discussions potentially on an education plan that's being negotiated between Governor Whitmer's office and the Republicans in the state legislature.
And I would anticipate that the spike in the numbers that we have been seeing over the past couple weeks is playing into some of these decisions going into trying to finalize that plan for the schools to safely reopen. We're anticipating that part of this plan, there's going to be money attached to the plan. One of the issues with a lot of the school districts, they don't know what their budget is. They don't know what is going to be like. And you have to remember, they're spending a lot of money on PPE to safely be able to reopen the schools.
It's definitely a point of concern for these schools, not knowing what their funding is going to be for this upcoming fiscal school year, and that's definitely going to have an impact on their decision making as they continue to make their plans for not only this school year, but going into the future, where they've already made some cuts to staffing and they've already made some cuts to programs, and they already have moved a lot of money around because they don't know how much of a cut's they're going to get per pupil, and that's going to have a huge impact one way or another on their plans for this upcoming school year. And with that, the uncertainty only builds that more and more. We've even heard, and even the frustration builds with that more. We've heard both from Dr. Gerald Hill and from Kenneth Gutman, the superintendents of the West Bloomfield School District and the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, respectively, both expressing different levels of frustration toward the not necessarily indecision, but lack of decision from the state level.
So we should note that the last time the governor spoke regarding COVID-19 was August 5th. And then after that press conference, she did extend the emergency disaster declaration through September 4th. So, and what that does is that allows her to have certain powers to make some of these decisions, to mandate masks, things of that nature. Just like last week, though, her staff doesn't always give the media a heads up as to specifically what the governor is going to be discussing, but she's taken the podium right now.
Governor Whitmer is taking the podium. We'll quickly pause for station identification. You are watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We'll go now to Lansing live as we stand by. Governor Whitmer has taken the podium to begin her press conference today, her second press conference of the month of August. She last spoke on August 5th, addressing the state's COVID-19 response. We're standing by. Governor Whitmer should begin very shortly. live from Lansing. And we will have the entire press conference for you here on the Oakland County Megacast, and then live and then on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast.
Good morning. Today is Friday, August 14th. Thank you for paying attention and tuning in. We appreciate it. I'm joined today by our Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist, our Chief Medical Executive, Dr. Janae Caldoun, Robert Gordon, the Director of DHHS, and Jim Hackett, the CEO of Ford. I want to congratulate Jim on his upcoming retirement. I appreciate his leadership and his years of dedication to ensuring that Michigan remains the automotive capital of the world, and we're excited to be here with Ford, and you'll see why shortly. Michiganders have now been fighting the COVID-19 pandemic for over 5 months. We took one of the most aggressive approaches in the nation against this virus, and because we've taken this so seriously, we're doing much better than other states like Florida and Texas, who are continuing to struggle and closed later and reopened earlier than we did, who are now seeing historic surges in cases. MLive reported yesterday that despite being one of the hardest hit states early on, our state currently ranks 40th in the 7-day average of new coronavirus cases per capita, and in the 40th percent testing positive on coronavirus diagnostic tests. These are wonderful pieces of information compared to what's happening across the country. Our average infection rate for the last month was half that of Ohio and Indiana and Wisconsin. This slide shows Michigan's daily cases per million compared to other Midwest states. MLive also reported that states across the country that did not take this virus seriously are now seeing record numbers in terms of daily coronavirus cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. Georgia was the first state in the country to reopen its economy and is now averaging 5 times the number of new cases of coronavirus in a day, 5 times more than the state of Michigan. And while states like Georgia and Florida and Texas reported hundreds of new deaths last week, Michigan had 43. Our percent positivity rate is also far below our Midwestern neighbors. And we have continued to ramp up testing over the past few months. There's a wonderful Twitter thread by Dr. Ashish Jha that talks about testing and positivity rates. And I think it's worth your time to look if you happen to be on Twitter. This virus demands to be taken seriously. Youth will not protect you from this virus. Your political affiliation will not protect you from this virus. And this virus will not go away just because we're tired of dealing with it. The only way we can put a stop to this pandemic, an end to this pandemic, is to take it seriously, do our part to protect one another, and do what we know works. My mask says, "I wear this for you," and it is true. When we wear masks, and we wear it properly so it covers our nose and mouth, when we practice social distancing, and when we go out to get tested when it's necessary, when we do these things, we put our whole state in a stronger position to send our kids back to school safely. Wearing a homemade mask is simple, and it shows your commitment to protecting yourself, your family, and your fellow Michiganders from this virus. To make it easier for those who are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19 and who need help securing masks, today we're announcing the My Mask Aid project. This project is a partnership involving the state of Michigan, FEMA, and the Ford Motor Company, and it's a result of the hard work of the Michigan COVID-19 Task Force on Racial Disparities, chaired by Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. We will provide 4 million free masks to people who need them most. It's a really incredible donation that Ford is working with us to make sure that we're able to do this. 1 million of the face coverings from FEMA, 1.5 million from Ford will go to low-income schools, the City of Detroit, federally qualified health centers, some COVID-19 testing sites, and to many organizations helping to reach vulnerable populations. including minority residents who have been affected by the public health crisis as a result of historic racism. Anyone interested in receiving a free mask can find a distribution location by calling the COVID-19 hotline at 888-535-6136 or looking up their local community action agency online. I want to thank Jim Hackett and Ford for their partnership in this project. This partnership is going to save lives. Wearing a mask has been proven to reduce the chance of spreading COVID-19 by about 70%. According to one estimate, if 95% of Americans wore masks between now and December 1st, it would save 66,000 American lives. According to one estimate, if 95% of Americans do this, we can make our economy stronger and save one another's lives. That's 66,000 people who are parents or grandparents or children, siblings, friends. It could be saved by the simple act of wearing a mask when you go to the grocery store or pharmacy or when you're out and about. As a parent, I know the number one thing on everyone's mind is whether and how their kids are going to return to school this fall. So parents across Michigan are anxiously awaiting their school districts to decide how they're going to safely educate our kids, whether it's by remote learning or implementing the strict safety measures I outlined in the My Safe Schools reopening in June. After a rise in COVID cases in July and early August, our case numbers have begun to plateau. So we're not out of the woods, and this crisis is far from over, but we appear to have stopped the incline, but we're now plateaued, and we want to see that become a decline. To get through this and to ensure the safety of our kids, educators, and support staff this fall, everyone's got to continue to do their part. We also need the Trump administration and Congress to step up and provide additional support to states like Michigan so we can send more resources to our classrooms to keep our kids and our educators and all of their families safe. I want to end by thanking the thousands of Michiganders on the front lines of this crisis. While people everywhere have made tremendous sacrifices to protect their families from this virus, those on the front lines have put their own health at risk to take care of the rest of us every day for the past 5 months. Grueling, stressful work. If you've ever listened to This American Life on NPR, they've highlighted some stories of people on the front line in Detroit, and you might want to check it out. I was proud, but also it was an eye-opener, and I hope maybe you might listen. Nurses and doctors working 18-hour shifts and giving up time with their families to keep them safe, who stood by the side of a bed where someone lost their battle with COVID-19 and their family couldn't be there. Grocery store workers, especially in the beginning of this pandemic, worked around the clock to keep our shelves stocked to ensure people could buy groceries safely. Child care workers who've been instrumental in helping our frontline workers save lives every day. These are truly the real heroes of this crisis, truck drivers and mail carriers, the people who mask up every day for hours on end to ensure our safety. They deserve our gratitude and respect, and the best way we can show it is by masking up. So with that, I want to say thank you to all of those who I've just described who've stayed on the front lines. I want to encourage everyone in our state to keep doing our part to stay smart and to mask up. And with that, I'll introduce the Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, everyone. I also would like to acknowledge Dr. Jonay Khaldun, our Chief Medical Executive, Director Robert Gordon from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and Mr. Jim Hackett, the Chief Executive Officer of Ford. Thank you for being such a tight-knit ministry and leadership. The coronavirus pandemic has proven that there is still a lot of work to do, but it has also shown what's possible when we work together to ensure that all of our collective well-being can be taken care of. That is why I'm proud to stand here alongside these tremendous leaders as we announce the My Mask Aid project to give 4 million masks to Michigan residents who are the most vulnerable to COVID-19. When we formed the Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Disparities, we knew COVID-19 was disproportionately impacting people of color and the Black community in Michigan in particular. But it wasn't necessarily clear why. However, it did quickly become clear that more often than not, it is people of color who don't have the financial luxury of working from home, who take public transportation to get groceries and other services, who don't have access to quality health care in a consistent way, and whose neighbors may be environmentally jeopardized due to other factors. All of these dynamics have left people of color overly exposed to this deadly virus, and we've been seeing that play out in the data with Black people still dying at higher rates. As of yesterday, we've lost 6,289 lives to COVID-19. 2,457 of those are Black Michiganders. And these are people. These are not statistics and numbers. They have stories, they have legacies, families. These lives were cut short, and it was long overdue that we did something about it. So we got to work immediately to do something about this. We assembled 24 of the strongest and most conscientious minds in our state: doctors, public health experts, scientists, community leaders, faith leaders, academics, civil rights advocates, labor leaders, parents, young people, all coming together for the task force. And it's been working hard for nearly 4 months to provide real solutions, not just recommendations. And the My Mask Aid project is one of the results of that work. I would like to take a step back and to not only thank the task force members for their continued engagement, but also to highlight much of the work that's been done to this point. One of the first actions was helping to support a letter from Dr. Jonae Caldoun to medical practitioners as a reminder that medical bias can be interjected every time a decision is made about care, and to be mindful of that. We worked with task force member Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence to specifically and explicitly request federal funding to expand a mobile testing pilot program in partnership with Ford Motor Company. And Jim, I want to thank you for that partnership. We expanded drive-through and walk-up testing for the nearly 30% of Detroiters who don't have access to their own private vehicle and therefore can't take full advantage of things like drive-through testing. We encourage regions to create their own racial disparities task force to address specific challenges in their communities, and are proud of operations like the ones in Flint and in Calhoun County and in other parts of the state. We made sure that civil rights protections were available for people of color who made the responsible decision to wear a mask or a face covering in the beginning. We expanded the mobile testing partnership with Ford and Wayne State University to serve people in the right neighborhoods, inside and outside of their homes. We capitalized on the interactions between residents and healthcare providers to connect people with doctors that they otherwise may not have had access to, and to connect them with long-term primary care and other services. We've directed the Department of Health and Human Services to develop implicit bias training that will be required as a part of the renewal of medical licenses and registrations of health professionals in the state of Michigan. We took the much needed and necessary step of declaring racism a public health crisis, which made Michigan just one of the few states to make that declaration alongside the states of Nevada and Wisconsin, according to the American Public Health Association. And last but not least, we stood here last week to announce the creation of the Black Leadership Advisory Council, a first-of-its-kind body that will recognize the important role and elevate the leadership of Black leaders across different sectors in our community and our economy. Each action that we've taken on the task force has sought to make an immediate impact as well as a long-term impact for the people in our communities. But the most immediate thing all of us can do right now is wear a mask to slow the spread of this deadly virus. The My Mask Aid project was a natural next step for the task force to ensure that these life-saving resources are available for everyone. Remember, people of color were disproportionately impacted by the virus because they didn't have the luxury to do these things like working from home or not being able to, forego trips to the grocery store and things like that. Since the first executive order at the end of April that required face coverings for symptomatic and asymptomatic individuals, we've wanted to make sure that there were civil rights protections for mask wearers, and also do everything we can to make sure that masks are available. And by delivering 4 million masks to these communities, we can provide this proven device to make sure that people are able to get through this pandemic. Our partners at Ford, at FEMA, DHHS, all deserve our thanks, my thanks, and our state's thanks for making this a reality. Ultimately, I believe that there is a great irony in this pandemic and in our response to it. The irony of all of the physical distancing that's been required for us to be safe and to stay safe is that it reminds us how truly connected to one another we are. It shows us just how much we need one another to be successful and how much we rely on one another to be safe and to be healthy. The individual actions that we take, the individual choices that we make, they impact our collective well-being. And that's why it is so important that we all make the decisions that are in not only our own best interests or the interests of our families and our households, but in the interests of our communities, of our state, and of our country. On the other side of this, I think we're going to be a better connected people and better connected community. I think when it's safe and when we're in person, we're going to value that time more. We're going to hug each other a little tighter. We're going to check in on people more often via phone or via text, and maybe we'll still keep a Zoom call or two. That's going to make sure that we are all making sure that our people are okay. And that's going to lead to stronger, safer, and better connected communities. And that is a future that I look forward to on the other side of this pandemic. So thank you so much. And everyone in Michigan, please continue to mask up for all of our sakes. With that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our Chief Medical Executive, Dr. Jonae Khaldun.
Thank you, Governor and Lieutenant Governor. So yesterday, we announced 90,392 cases and 6,289 total deaths due to COVID-19 in the state. Overall, we believe we're seeing a plateau in cases after cases increased in June and July. We continue to be cautiously optimistic that we are trending in the right direction as a state. But the spread of COVID-19 continues to look differently by region. The Detroit region is at about 50 cases per million people per day, with 4.1% of those tests coming back positive. But I want to focus a little bit more on the Detroit region, which includes the city of Detroit, but also the surrounding Southeast Michigan counties. So much of the elevation in cases and percent positivity is related to the counties surrounding the city of Detroit. Detroit has a case rate of 26 cases per million people per day, with a positivity rate of 2.6%. However, Wayne, Monroe, and Oakland counties all have over 40 cases per million people per day and a positivity rate over 4%. Macomb County has the highest numbers in the region, with a case rate of 82 cases per million people per day and a positivity rate of 7.4%. So this is why it's so important that businesses, schools, and others work very closely with their local health departments to implement strategies to fight this disease at the local level. So let me talk a little bit more about the other regions in the state. The Saginaw region has a case rate of 50 cases per million people per day, with a positivity rate of 3.7%. The Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, and Upper Peninsula regions are all at 30 to 40 cases per million people per day, with declining rates for the past 1 to 3 weeks and positivity under 3%. The Jackson region is at just under 30 cases per million people per day, with positivity just over 2%, and the Lansing and Traverse City regions are under 20 cases per million people per day, excuse me, and also have positivity under 2%. We also continue to focus on our testing. So last week, we reached our highest number of tests yet at over 38,000 tests in one day. And overall, the percent of those tests that are positive is at about 3.2%. And we also continue to see a low level of deaths. These are all good signs, and we continue to monitor these metrics. It's also important to note that we are not only looking at one day of cases that are reported, but trends over time. That's very important. And what we also know is that even if the trend is stabilizing, it only takes a few people to create an outbreak and have the disease spread rapidly in a community. We're still seeing outbreaks across the state in every region, and these are occurring in many different settings. The top categories for these continuing outbreaks are skilled nursing and long-term care facilities, social gatherings, agricultural and food processing facilities, child care and youth programs, manufacturing, healthcare, restaurants, schools, and colleges. And what these outbreaks mean is that the virus is still very present among us, and we must remain vigilant. One of the most important things everyone can do is wear a mask. Masks work, and they prevent the spread of the disease. I work in an emergency department, and I wear an N95 mask for my entire shift every time. My 3 school-age children wear masks, and they will wear them if they go back to school in person. This includes my youngest child, who's going into the 2nd grade. Even younger children can and should be taught to wear a mask when they are indoors or if they're going to be within 6 feet of someone else. And I encourage every school superintendent who is developing plans for in-person instruction to mandate masks for children of all ages, even in a classroom setting. I'm excited that we are announcing the My Mask Aid partnership to make over 4 million masks available for free to Michigan residents, including those who are most vulnerable to COVID-19. And I'm grateful for the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist and MDHHS Director Robert Gordon, as well as Ford Motor Company, for working to make this project possible. No one should have to worry about where to get a mask or how they will afford one. And that's why we're making masks easily accessible for those who are the most vulnerable. Finally, I want to note that August is National Immunization Awareness Month. We know that we saw a significant decline in immunizations because of the pandemic, and people have been hesitant to seek important medical services. But please, especially parents, reach out to your child's doctor to ask about immunizations and to make sure that they are up to date. Our medical professionals have opened their offices back up, and they have important procedures in place so that they can take care of you and your family safely. There's not currently a vaccine approved for COVID, but there are many safe and effective vaccines for things like measles, mumps, hepatitis, meningitis, and the flu. So make sure you and your family are up to date on these critical and often life-saving vaccines. So I know it's been hard and people are tired. There's uncertainty about how the virus will spread in this state. But we all simply have to focus on the things that we can control. We can all wear a mask. We can all wash our hands. We can keep our distance from others. We can pick up our phones if someone from the health department calls, and we can make sure our families are up to date on their vaccinations. So please do these simple things. If we all do this, we will see COVID-19 cases continue to decline, and we will beat this virus. And with that, I'll turn it over to Robert Gordon, MDHHS Director.
Thank you, Dr. Khaldun, and thank you for your extraordinary leadership of the department's response and the state's response. Thank you, Governor Whitmer and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, for your leadership. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the evidence around masks. There is so much we still do not know about coronavirus, but one thing we do know with certainty is that masks help prevent COVID spread. States that required masks early, as Michigan did on April 24th, had less growth in COVID than states that didn't. Countries with norms around wearing masks had less growth than those that did not. Governor Whitmer talked about wearing a mask to protect others, and that is critical because when you wear a mask, if you have COVID, and you could have it without realizing it, it prevents you from spreading the disease. At the same time, there is also growing evidence that when you wear a mask, it can protect yourself. That's because it can prevent you from getting the disease in its most severe form. Even if the mask doesn't block all droplets from getting to you, it can block some of them. And that can make the difference between getting COVID asymptomatically and getting COVID and ending up in the ICU. Most Michiganders have done their part. Back in May, a YouGov survey found that Michiganders were more likely than most Americans to wear masks. New York Times survey in July also found us doing well compared to our neighbors. For months now, Governor Whitmer has said that while we as Americans are proud of our choices in most of our lives, wearing a mask is a personal responsibility and a requirement to protect our fellow Michiganders. But it should be as easy as possible to exercise that responsibility. We should never have to wonder if we can afford a mask or find one. And as with so much else surrounding COVID, there are real disparities in access and affordability, including racial disparities, and we need to tackle those disparities head on. That is why today's initiative is so important. 4 million masks statewide, most delivered directly to communities where cost and access are likeliest to be challenges, many of them being held at MDHHS offices. I want to do a shout out to our thousands of staff, many of whom have continued their critical work from home under these conditions, delivering benefits regularly, on time, in spite of all the challenges. Some have continued throughout the crisis to go into their offices because they are essential there. And we will make masks available at our offices for folks who need them. As Governor Whitmer said, if you don't know where to find an office or find a mask, you can call the COVID-19 hotline at 888-535-6136. A little more detail about the mask distribution. Already today, we've distributed more than 1.4 million masks statewide. These include 500,000 to our critical partners at community action agencies that quietly do so much heroic work supporting residents in need. Another 500,000 for other community organizations and our offices, 235,000 masks for homeless shelters, and smaller distributions to tribal organizations, area agencies on the aging, and PACE centers serving seniors, and community health centers where people get tests. With the additional masks that are coming in, we'll be making deliveries targeted at schools, including masks of different sizes, and I want to reiterate Dr. Caldoon's point that even young children can and should be wearing masks. And through this distribution, we will help to make that easier. We'll also support people who are visiting community test sites, grocery stores, including Hispanic grocery stores that serve migrant workers, and especially across the city of Detroit. I want, as Lieutenant Gilchrist said, the Racial Disparities Task Force played the central role in developing these plans, and I'm very grateful to them. This is just one more important way to make it easy for each Michigander to do their part and make all of us safer. And with that, I want to introduce the CEO of Ford Motor Company, Mr. Hackett.
What an honor it is to be here today. Thank you, Governor Whitmer, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, Dr. Caldoon, and Director Gordon. Governor made reference to the tragedy of this pandemic crisis and the heroes that emerged. And I'm proud to tell you that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants from Ford Motor Company and UAW, who since March have been working diligently building PPE. We've produced over 72 million pieces for life-saving support. And that's in addition to the 1.5 million masks that we're talking about donating today. At Ford, our priority has always been to see the role that we play in society in addition to the opportunity to produce profit. Throughout history, Ford has stepped up in times when there was significant need. For example, we built iron lungs when polio was reaching crisis levels back in history, or the World War II initiative where we built bomber planes at Willow Run. So this is a moment when our country needs us, and we're stepping up. What's also proud to tell you about is in the spirit of innovation, our people have been able to take componentry from inside our supply chain, like in building these special respirators that people wear. We've been using materials from inside our car seats. They're used for cooling. Or from airbags, making gowns when there was no supply chain for those. It's a really proud moment because the team members inside Ford do this without any regard for credit, and they see their role in supporting our community as a primary reason why we're all proud to work at Ford Motor Company. We also have an extensive dealer network that is helping us, and in this case, they're going to be part of helping us distribute masks as we gear up to build more. Our suppliers, of course, have been helping. And it really just makes sense to invest in our state and in our country. In fact, the Ford Fund, which has existed for years, has quietly been filling needs in communities, including distributing food to first responders and helping distribute PPE to healthcare workers. And we're working with nonprofits in Michigan and around the world to keep them with resources. But you know what? We couldn't do this alone. So I'm proud, Governor, of your initiative in leading this. And it's times like these where we need to pull together as a group and to listen to Director Gordon and understand the power of what masking can do to save lives. So thank you. I'd like to now turn it over to Governor Whitmer. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, this is great, and these Ford masks are really cool because they got the Ford symbol on it, which is neat. With that, I'd be happy to open it up. I know that members of the press have some questions, and I'll do my best to answer them, or Dr. J or Director Gordon or the Lieutenant Governor will jump in when it makes sense. So let's get started.
All right, Governor, the first question will come from Eric Lloyd with TV 9 and 10.
Hello, Governor. I was just wondering today, when you've been saying a lot over time that we've been following the most accurate data in science, and that's been what you're making your decisions behind. But we all know statistics can be used to make any argument, and it seems like people can pick and choose what they want to follow to make their arguments. So I was just wondering, what is your response to when someone comes back with a different number or a different statistic that fits their argument that goes against kind of the numbers you are following and making your decisions with?
Well, I'll answer that, and then I'm going to ask Dr. J to talk a little bit about data and the efficacy of the numbers that we're using, that we are sharing, that we've made very available to anyone who wants to go on the state website and understand what's happening in a particular region. I'll say this. We've made every decision along the way, and some of them have been very tough decisions. Based on the best epidemiological advice, the best public health counsel, understanding the numbers and what we were seeing in Michigan to try to push those numbers down. People might have not always agreed with the decisions that were made, but the facts are that we have pushed that curve down. We've saved thousands of lives in the state of Michigan. We are doing better than other states in the Midwest, and the Midwest is stronger than most other places in the country. So we should feel very proud about what we have done, and we should have confidence that the way that we've made decisions and the data that we're using is really borne out to the benefit of people, our health first and foremost, but also our economy. I don't think anyone in Florida would question that. It would be better to be a Michigander right now than a Floridian because of the stronger position that we're in, the lives that we've saved, and the crisis that they are still in the midst of. The numbers that we use are collected through our partnerships with the hospitals and local departments of public health. Sometimes we have to update the numbers because maybe one area was slower to come in or over the weekend. Sometimes the reporting lags. But I would say our numbers have been consistently shared, that we've been transparent about some of the inherent issues that make it, that we have to correct along the way. And I think that the outcome speaks for itself. And with that, I'd like to bring Dr. J up just to talk a little bit more about data.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of the challenges is that we do not have a national testing strategy. There are not national testing guidelines around what number should you look at. So what ends up happening is that us in Michigan, and I talk to a lot of my colleagues across the country, we're all trying to develop these protocols and these metrics all at the same time while we're fighting the disease. I think it's also important to note that while different states may track things just a little bit differently, we also look at trends over time. We look at positivity not just today, but we look at it over weeks. We look at not the number of tests. We don't focus on the number of tests from a lab that comes in on any particular day, but we go back and we look at, for all those positive cases, when did they start having symptoms? And we look at those cases as well over time. We're not making decisions based on 1 or 2 percentages of positivity that change in one day. We look at it over time, and we compare ourselves to others as well. So that's how we're using the data.
Okay, Governor, the next question comes from Rick Albin with TV 8.
Governor, you and the Lieutenant Governor and the doctor have all talked about the importance of social distancing and wearing masks. I got a question from a viewer this morning. Her children go to Kenowa Hills High School, and she is concerned because she believes it is impossible to social distance when kids go back to school just because of the physical limitations. And on the other end of the spectrum, expecting a 7-year-old to wear a mask for 7 hours a day, as the father of one, I think that's kind of a tough task. How sure are you that we can open schools safely?
So I think that what our task is to do the best we can with the information that's available. What we recognize is that we have over 800 school districts in the state of Michigan, and each district has their own challenges, but also their own resources and opportunities. Some schools have a much bigger footprint where they are in an easier position of spacing kids out. Others have a built-in system that is already existing with regard to distance learning through technology, the use of technology. And so a one-size-fits-all determination coming out of Lansing was really not going to be the wisest way to proceed. And that's why we put together the task force who promulgated best practices depending on whether a region's in phase 3, phase 4, or phase 5. And it's the school boards in conjunction with their teachers and their teachers' unions, as well as the parents, that need to fashion what is going to make sense in a particular district. I have the same concerns as a parent of a child still in our public schools, but more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but just as importantly, I am the governor of 1.5 million Michigan kids who need an education, and that's why we wanted to promulgate strict protocols depending on which phase that a particular area is in, but these are decisions that are going to need to be made at the local level, and Michigan is in stride with other states that are navigating this very same thing. And it doesn't make it easier, but the fact of the matter is parents have to be a part of the conversation that is happening at that school board level and with the superintendents. I would add this, Rick, I understand your concern as a dad of a 7-year-old. I am concerned about teenagers being, the fidelity to mask wearing, and yet we know, if you look around the world, other countries are doing this. Kids of all ages are adapting. So the most important thing that we as adults can do is to show our kids through our own actions that this is the expectation and that it's doable, to show maybe other kids around the world who are doing it, who've resumed in-person instruction and done so safely because they're universally masked up. And try to get the stigma away from it. I know that our kids aren't hampered by the politics around it, but we can do this. My communications director is a 3-year-old. He got a Paw Patrol mask for his child. She loves that mask. So I think it's really important for us to figure out how we can work with our children to help them keep themselves safe, but also everyone in your household safe too.
Okay. Governor, the next question comes from Emily Lawler with MLive.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for taking my question. Teachers are afraid of being exposed to larger groups of children in classrooms. I talked to an epidemiologist who says those fears are valid. Why are you limiting other gatherings to 10 people but not schools? And what science is that based on?
So I might pull Dr. J in to be a part of this discussion because Dr. J was helping to advise the task force on schools. But here's what we know. Our kids need to get an education, and schools that are able to do distance learning many of them are going to pursue that this fall, at least for a time being, and to see where things go. My daughter, for instance, goes to school here in town, and they're going to be at distance at least till the end of September. The fact of the matter is, the more people that are in a room, the higher the risk of the spread of COVID-19, and that's why we're doing this remotely. I'm protecting your health, members of the press who maybe aren't thrilled about not being in the room together, but that's what this is about, following the orders and keeping you safe. With regard to our teachers, I understand the concern. I've had a very heartfelt conversation with a teacher who is worried about this. We know that if we can observe the distancing and the masking, we have the protocols about who's coming in. We have the ability to assess who is at risk and do the testing. and where our numbers are now, we've got confidence we can do this safely. And with that, maybe Dr. J will come up and share a little bit more.
Yeah, so it was an honor to be a part of the Return to Learn task force. And one of the things that was really important to the task force, myself as well as a parent, is that we do everything we can to get our kids back in school, and ideally in person. When it comes to the risk of COVID-19, of course, we look at the number of people in a room, and the smaller the number, the lower the risk is that one of those people will have COVID-19 and they will spread it to someone else. But there's other factors that contribute to whether or not someone would potentially get the disease. We're talking about wearing masks and why it's so important to wear a mask, and we're making them available to students across the state. We talk about social distancing. We talk about washing hands, and not just limiting the number of people in a classroom if you can, and I know not all schools can do that, but also cohorting the students. So even if you are in that class, you're not spreading it across the entire school, and you're staying with that group of children alone as much as possible to make sure the disease spreads in a limited way, if it is going to spread at all, and that contact tracing is as simple as possible. So these were really tough decisions, but we thought that making it easy for teachers to teach in a classroom with the limitations of the physical distance and space within the classrooms, this was appropriate.
The next question comes from Kim Russell with TV7.
Thanks for taking my question, Governor. We have been hearing a lot from the legislature about having two-tiered funding systems for schools that are offering virtual and in-person learning. Will you approve anything that would lower the funding levels for schools that are choosing virtual? And also, any message you have for teachers considering striking because of safety concerns?
Well, as the districts have been promulgating their plan, which they are all due today, and we'll have an opportunity to scrutinize them starting next week, they are supposed to be working with their teachers' unions. And these are subjects of collective bargaining, and they've got to uphold those agreements, and that's really important. I'd also add that, we are, I think, in the midst of conversation with the legislature about a few things that were not addressed in the executive order, and we've not finalized it. I would anticipate that we'll be able to have some understanding over the next 24 hours. I believe the Senate is planning to be in tomorrow and to do their part, but the agreement's not completed yet. But with regard to funding, we need to put more resources into our education system, period. Not to utilize this crisis to start to starve districts from funding if they make a choice based on what is in the best health and safety of their students. And so what we recognize is that in a normal summer, there is learning loss. There's learning loss from the last day of school in June to the first day of school in September generally. That learning loss is much more pronounced for kids who are in higher poverty. This level of learning loss, having been out of school, although we've done our best to keep kids engaged from March until whenever it is that in-person instruction resumes, is going to create a lot of challenges. We're going to need to get our kids the kind of wraparound supports that they need to be successful. And that is going to require more resources, not less. And that's precisely why I'm hopeful that on the federal level, they get this fourth supplemental done, because time is of the essence. And the most important things at risk are our public education and safety and health. Three arguably the most important things that we do in the midst of a global pandemic that is still not under control, for which there is still not a national strategy, and for which there still isn't, I think, just accurate information simply being disseminated from the federal government. And that's precisely why we need to do more on this front, not less.
Okay, Governor, we have time for one last question, and that will come from Andrew Olacone with TV6 in the UP.
Hi, Governor. I'm going to ask about masks in schools again, because we heard Dr. Caldoun say she would encourage all superintendents to make sure their students are required to wear masks, but we know of at least one district in the UP that is not requiring it. Do you think you'd consider a change to require districts to wear masks?
At this juncture, we're not anticipating an additional order on that front. I would just say that we have required masks for a certain age and up. We strongly encourage masks for everyone, though. And I hope that parents and students and teachers and administrators alike are hearing this. We know that mask wearing is a cultural change that we have to make, and it's not easy to make it quickly, but the cost of this pandemic is necessitating that we do. The fact of the matter is that this pandemic has ravaged the United States worse than any other country. The fact of the matter is we are dealing with the largest recession since the Great Depression, economic calamity, because we never as a country got our arms around this crisis. And we're having a 9/11 loss of life every other day in the United States. Masking is simple. It might be annoying. It might be, for some people, you can't do it, but the vast majority of us can do it. And when we do it, we create an opportunity for us to stay safe and keep our economy moving forward. And that's, I hope, important to every single one of us. Thank you, everybody. Mask up.
Thank you, everybody.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer live from Lansing, her second press conference of the month of August on the Oakland County Megacast. We thank you for tuning in as Governor Whitmer spoke live from Lansing, as well as Dr. Jonay Caldoun, the Chief Medical Executive of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, the Lieutenant Governor as well, and then the CEO of Ford had also spoken as the state government announced its Michigan Mask Aid Project that will provide 4 million masks to the people of Michigan, including many school districts, particularly in lower income areas and in inner city areas as well. Big program that they announced with Ford. It was kind of questionable why they had the CEO there at first, but then that was revealed, and it makes a lot of sense as Ford continues to produce PPE. In addition, that project also a benefit of the Racial Disparities Task Force, which also played a role in planning that as well. Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist II had spoken on that. Dr. Jonay Caldoun talked about the latest in our COVID-19 cases. We're still considered to be in a bit of a plateau despite recent daily spikes, as we've seen a couple of times over the course of this week, including today's spike in over 1,000 cases reported from Thursday. And then a lot of questions the governor received about what to do about mask wearing and social distancing measures in schools, but still not a lot of clarity provided on that. Maybe more of that will be provided over the weekend as the Senate and other legislatures, other Republican members of the legislature make an agreement with the governor they're allegedly close on, and maybe she's keeping her cards a little closer to her chest instead of revealing what could possibly be negotiating tools as this continues on.
Yeah, she did hint at there was going to be some type of decision making within, she said, possibly the next 24 hours. So a lot of elected leaders, a lot of school leaders, a lot of teachers and parents waiting for this announcement. Funding, again, is a big issue for these school districts going forward. And you have to remember a lot of the funding for the schools is tied to attendance. How are you going to take attendance for students virtually? And what are you going to do with students who are going to possibly be absent a lot more because of COVID? Or do you have to quarantine full classes? Another big issue, we had two reporters, and just so people know how they're doing this now for the press conferences, is they are doing the reporters' questions via Zoom, and the reporters are having to submit their questions earlier prior to this meeting. We had two separate reporters from across the state ask about mask wearing in the schools, because while you're making a mandate, if you're talking about reality, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-olds, trying to have them required to wear that mask the entire time they're in the building. But on the other side of that, Tyler, social distancing. How is that actually going to work in day-to-day practice in the halls and in the classrooms in these school buildings?
I think it's going to be a lot tougher than just simply asking that students wear masks, requiring them for certain ages, and heavily suggesting for other ages, because even where you're requiring it, kids are ultimately going to do whatever comes to their mind. Maybe you have their mask on for a few minutes, but especially the younger children, as they're playing at recess, as they're doing classwork in the school, as they get uncomfortable, these masks get uncomfortable even for adults, and they walk away and take them off for a few minutes and let the fresh air get on their face or whatever the case may be. It's going to be a similar situation for these kids. Having been a camp counselor and asked kids to not do that, stop that, maybe a little less of that, hundreds of times just in one summer, and had them not respond to that. I don't know. It's going to also depend, I would think, on the parents and how they have presented COVID-19 and this crisis to their kids. But it's going to be a lot greater of an effort than I believe the governor in the state of Michigan has put forth in their plans to require kids to wear these masks in school.
So one of the other issues that I think is going to play out over the next week or two, you have a lot of teachers who are feeling that they've been left out of this conversation on whether or not they should return to the classroom or go remote learning. There is some talk of a potential strike with teachers, and so that'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But teachers already have so much on their plate, and now you're going to also make them like the mask social distance coordinator in these classrooms and in these hall rooms, on top of trying to teach kids in the middle of a pandemic. That's going to be, hopefully over the weekend, we'll get some clarification on how they're going to address these issues, and also, are the teachers actually going to strike, and what's that going to look like?
And Governor Whitmer did briefly address the possibility of some of those strikes. She had said that the school districts were required in submitting their plans to the state to formulate those plans on a district level in partnership with their district's teachers' unions. Now, whether or not that happened in full before these plans were submitted, we can't say yes or no on all these cases. I would imagine in some situations those negotiations have been going on for several months, and certain issues pop up as you get later on in the game before any plans are being sent to the state, and then you have a deadline, and that deadline is today to get those plans into the governor and into the governor's office and to the state. And some of these school districts may have gone forward with submitting those plans before they maybe were entirely finalized in agreement with these teachers' unions, or teachers are simply not feeling comfortable with going back to in-person learning at all, and it's not entirely feasible for the school districts, so their last course of action is to say, well, we're not showing up to school then.
So if you are just tuning in and you missed the governor's press conference, really the big announcement coming out of this was the My Mask Aid project, in which 4 million masks are going to be distributed throughout the state of Michigan for low-income people, as well as seniors, homeless shelters, and schools. The state of Michigan partnering with Ford and FEMA. Ford is going to be donating 1.5 million of those masks, but to date, Ford has made 72 million pieces of PPE since March. When you look at that number, that is amazing at how they've been able to pivot during this pandemic and this crisis to help out the community.
Yeah, they've done excellent work making PPE. They said they had made, I think you said, over 70 million pieces of PPE, and that's not even including the 1.5 million masks that they're going to make as part of this partnership with the state government for the My Mask Aid project. So Ford being a great partner for the entire state in this, in providing 1.5 million of the 4 million masks between Ford, between the state of Michigan, between FEMA and other organizations that will make up those 4 million masks that will be distributed in this project that is just now underway.
So real quick too, Tyler, I want to give out the numbers. So if you do want a free mask, there is a number that you can call. It's the COVID-19 hotline. It's 888-535-6136. Again, that's 888-535-6136. So write that number down if you want a mask, and they are going to be distributing them throughout the state through various organizations, and they will be able to get you a free mask. But again, a lot of these are going to be going to the school and the school districts.
The distribution will be at select sites around the state to pick up these masks. 4 million masks being produced as part of this aid project, including 1.5 million being produced by the Ford Motor Company. And we heard from their CEO Hackett today at the press conference. And that press conference in its full entirety will be on our website later on today. We post all of our episodes, including full interviews and short clips, and Governor Whitmer's press conferences to our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can find more information on our partnering radio stations, 88.1 The Biff, and TV stations, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, as well as watch full episodes, short clips, and full interviews. So if you missed the governor's press conference today, later on today, click on Watch Full Interviews. That's where we post the governor's press conferences on demand. Watch full interviews. So click on that button on civiccentertv.com/megacast. You can watch the entire press conference there, or for short clips, we'll have several of those up from the governor's press conference. Click on the short clips button. And of course, if you want to review the entire episode as it went today, you can click on watch full episodes and watch all of our content from throughout the week. Each of our 5 full episodes weekly, Monday through Friday, we're live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We replay in the afternoons, and then we're on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can find all the information you may want to know about the Oakland County Megacast. In addition, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we have information about the latest news and latest news stories coming in each and every day of our show, including today, news articles about education, including the GOP legislature and the governor at the state level being close to a deal on reopening schools, as well as some information on some oversight of remote learning tactics as well. And we have direct links to pages about COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, from the state of Michigan, and from Oakland County. Those are all direct links to those websites, so you don't have to go to the CDC's website and look around for their COVID-19 page, dig through the state of Michigan's COVID-19 page. You can just simply click on them from our website. It takes you directly to those pages where you can find more information, such as testing sites, information on the Michigan Safe Schools Roadmap if you're curious about what was required of these schools in creating these plans to return to learn. Find out more about what Phase 4 means, what's Phase 3, what's Phase 5 and 6 going to look like by visiting Michigan's website to see their MySafe Start information. And all of that can be found by one quick link from civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, your home for coronavirus information throughout the local area, as well as our top stories. And that includes information from some of our local municipalities as well. So let's say you live in West Bloomfield Township, you're tuning in, you want to find more information specifically from the Charter Township of West Bloomfield. You can click on that page. It takes you directly to their informational page about COVID-19, which has even more resources locally and statewide that you can find on that website. And if you live in the city of Pontiac, same thing there. Their coronavirus COVID-19 information, including where you can get test kits for Pontiac and information from their Mayor Deirdre Waterman and messages from the city of Pontiac. All of that on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, your home for reputable resources for coronavirus information in our local area, as well as our latest news, stories, and information. So that is going to do it for our shows this week. I'd like to thank all of our Facebook partners and other guests and partners in the community for joining us over the course of this week. Thank our guests today, Steve Waterfield, the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, and Pamela Walther, the owner of Bizzy Buzz Artisan Market, for joining us today on the program, as well as Oakland University for supporting us on this OU Friday here on the Oakland County Megacast. We'll have another OU Friday for you a week from today with more guests from Oakland University and throughout the local area talking about COVID-19. You can watch us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. You can listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, online lakesfm.com, on 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and their live stream, WBFH.com. Anchor.fm, as well as a number of our Facebook partners throughout the week. I'd like to thank our crew, Larry Nyland, our Zoom producer, each and every day on the show, organizing our guests, making them nice and comfortable in the Zoom meetings, getting them all ready to go to be on TV and radio with us. And Jake Kustash, our booking producer, as well, for getting all the guests lined up, all that information that we need so that we can have all this information, provide all this information for you, the watcher, the listener, the viewer out in the community. And of course, thank all of you for tuning in and welcome you back to join us again for our next live show on Monday. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. For Ronnie Dahl, I am Tyler Keefe, inviting you back next week Monday for our next live edition of the Oakland County Megacast.